Here's just a true fact about life. I think there are some things that are beautiful that you probably don't think are beautiful. We probably have some differing opinions on things that are beautiful, right? I fully understand that we live in the great state of Michigan, where we have winter for like 9 or 10 months, okay? And you are sick and wrong. And I love summer. I love 75, see the water, see the sun for hours upon hours upon hours a day, okay? And there's my people. There we go. Yep. Right, and I know some of my favorite people. I mean, I love you who think, I mean, you're wrong, but I love you who think winter is great, right? We have a differing view of beauty. I think a perfectly manicured golf course is one of the most stunning views in all the world. I love it. Others of you think, that could be a farm, that could be a building, that could be Others of you look at a really remarkable and detailed work of art, and you're just mesmerized by it. I look at it and think, I'm probably supposed to see a deep meaning, and I don't. Let me go play golf, right? I think the pets that you have in your home are beautiful. I think the pets I have in my home are beautiful if you take them, okay? Right? We just have different definitions of beauty, but there are some things that we agree on. There are some things that when it's beautiful and we see it, we agree. Nobody's debating that that's beautiful, and one of those is peace. Now, it's kind of hard to define, and that's the thing about things that we share common definitions of beauty for. It can be a little hard to define peace. We know it when we see it, but to try and explain it can be a little bit elusive. We know it when we see it in the face of a person in deep grief, and yet in their eyes there's this peace that actually it almost draws us. It actually is almost comforting to us as we're extending comfort to them. It's peace in the face of the elderly person who is rapidly approaching their exit from this earth. And yet they're full of all this hope and peace about what's coming and this life they have with Jesus. And we look and think, it's peaceful. It's somehow peaceful, right? And again, it's hard for us to define, like, what is that moment and how would we do, but when we look at it, we say, oh man, that's beautiful. Peace is beautiful. Give me more peace. Right? There's nobody walking around saying, yeah, when my life is most beautiful is when I have no peace, it's broken, hacked up. I just wish my life could be more unsettled. Could somebody throw more train wrecks my way? Right? Now, we've learned to grow in the pain. We've learned to understand that that's part of life and that God can redeem anything and use a lot of things for good, right? But nobody's like signing up for it, right? Hey, take all my peace. I don't really like that. It's one of the things that we think, man, peace is a beautiful thing. And it's when we look at it and say, man, the world could probably use more peace, right? I mean, we could use more people who are kind of set at one in their soul, who the very fiber of their being has been put together. All the broken bones and ligaments of their soul have been reconstructed and put back together. There's this picture of just being set at one, being made whole, even if everything around us is still breaking and crumbling and tragic and brings grief and pain and confusion and even doubt. And it's what Jesus came to offer. Jesus came. I mean, when we celebrate his birth, I mean, part of the reason we talk about peace is because it's what Jesus came to be, not just bring, but to be, his literal person. And yet it's so evident that the world could use more. When we look at the Christmas story, what we might call the most traditional version of the Christmas story, it's in a letter that's kind of titled by the guy who wrote it. His name's Luke. In the New Testament of the Bible, in Luke chapter 2, this is part of what we read in the Christmas story. So there's some shepherds, and now there's an angel, and the shepherds are going to hear about this birth of Jesus, and this is what we read, that there's a Savior, like a rescuer. Man, come on, we need a rescuer. There's a rescuer that's just been born in David's town. He's a Savior. Like the angel's like, you're going to need it twice. You need to be rescued, and it's possible. Who is the Messiah? He's going to be the new king and the leader. He's going to be the master. He goes on to say this is what you're to look for. This is how you're going to know that you found this Savior. It's going to be a baby wrapped in a blanket, lying in a manger, not the picture we would normally think of with a rescuer. But that's the one that that Jesus' life leads with. And it says, and at once the angel is joined by this huge angelic choir singing God's praises. Glory to God, like all the perfected weight, all the praise and attention in God's direction. Glory to God in the heavenlies. And then peace. Like oneness, wholeness, this sense of being put back together. That for all men and women on earth who participate in his great pleasure, who please him, which really is just the angel's way of saying, man, for those who would yield their life to Jesus and follow him, peace is a gift. Peace is part of the gift because peace is who Jesus is. But it's interesting, it says peace on the earth. It's like peace to the men and women, peace to the human beings, which doesn't necessarily translate to Jesus saying, I'm going to make all those problems go away, by the way. What Jesus is really going to be is he's going to be peace in the middle of all those problems. He's going to be peace in the middle of all that turmoil. He's going to be an ease and a contentment and a wholeness in the middle of all that brokenness. And that's a good thing, right? I mean, we would long for that in the middle of staring down all of life's challenges and wrestling with all the multitude of deep issues. Yeah, just, Jesus, man, be some peace to me. But there's something to it. And again, we sang about this. There's something to this thing of like peace is for us, but it's also to get through us. Peace is this gift. It's part of what we're reading here. Like, hey, yeah, I'm going to be peace to you. But then I'm also going to share peace through you. I want to give it to you, and in part, you're going to give it. Like we're most like God when we're giving. He's like, everything we have is because he gave it to us. And so then he says, man, you give that. You take that peace to the world. The writer of Hebrews, later in the New Testament of the Bible, well after this letter of Luke was written, he says this, work at living in peace. Listen, don't work to get peace. Peace is a gift. You can't earn it. But work to live at it, cultivate it, learn to live in it, learn to experience it, learn to rest in it, learn to see yourself the way Jesus sees you, learn to be at home in who Jesus is in the middle of every circumstances. Work at living in peace, but then work at living at peace with who? What's the next word? With who? Okay, the next word is everyone. It's two words. It's put together as one. Okay, work at living at peace with who? Everyone. Look, the whole world. Like, take peace to the whole world. I want you to take it to the whole world. Work at living this holy life in step with Jesus. For those who won't yield to Jesus, they miss him. They don't see him, and they miss out on who and what he could be. And here's the risk of that. Look at how we finished is this little theme. Look after everybody, because we want everybody to experience grace. Because if they don't, if you miss out on grace, that presents this whole other problem. You end up with this poisonous root of bitterness that sets in. And it grows up and it causes all sorts of trouble. It adds to all the things that you wish you had peace in. So he says, work at peace with everyone, the whole world. But here's the challenge. Everyone is a whole bunch of people. The whole world. So here's where it gets tough. Jesus, hey, take peace to the whole world. That's a challenge. That's a challenge. See, peace is this really beautiful thing, and we all would kind of agree that when we see peace, and even if we can't get a perfect definition, we're like, man, that's a beautiful thing. I want some of that. I'd even like the whole world, but what do I do with the whole world? How do I do a beautiful thing for the whole world? And really the invitation of Jesus is to say, look, I want to take peace to the whole world. But what I want to invite you to do is just take peace to your slice of the world. Just think about what you wish could be true of the whole world and just take it to your part of the world. Just take what you wish could be true about every single human, the whole world, and just help it be true for the people that you do intersect with, who are in your sphere of influence. A guy named Andy Stanley says it this way. He says, just do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. Just do for one what you wish you could do for everyone. The world problem you wish you could get rid of, how about if you just help get rid of it for one? The peace that you wish the whole world could have, how about if you just help give it to one? What you wish you could take to the whole world, take to one who is in your world. Take a beautiful, beautiful thing. Well, how do we do it? Well, for a couple minutes, I just want to talk about two beautiful things that we could do in the world, which listen, is not first going to be remove every problem. Because here's the thing, we need more peace before we experience less pain. We need more peace before we experience less pain. I said this last week. Washington doesn't need more peace. People who live and work in Washington need more peace. And if they have more peace, the rest of the world will get more peace, right? Your family doesn't need more peace. You need more peace. And when you live in more peace, then your family will have more peace. Okay? So we want to take more peace. We want to learn to live. Remember, work at living that peace. We want to learn to live in this peace of Jesus. And we want to take beautiful things into the world. So a couple ways in which we can do it. A couple themes or topics around which we can say, look, I'm going to take a beautiful thing to the world there. The first one is the issue of race. We all understand that the world does not necessarily look exactly like us. Everybody in the world doesn't look like you. Everybody in the world doesn't look like me. And yet, if you think about issues in the world today around which there's tension and confusion and hostility and divisiveness, race is clearly one of them. Race is clearly one of them. And it can be easy to kind of form a little bubble and build the world so it does kind of look like us. And yet the challenge is bubbles are meant to be popped. And if you build a bubble, that's great. But when the bubble pops, are you ready for what's on the outside of the bubble? You see, here's the thing. I don't know if you know this, and this might be really uncomfortable for a second for you, but you do understand that Jesus was not white, right? You want me to make it more awkward for some of you? Jesus was Middle Eastern. Okay, like from the beginning of time, Jesus has been pushing down ethnic, racial divides, right? He's going to people who people are like, don't go there, Jesus, don't go there. We're not even supposed to go through that town, let alone talk to those people. And Jesus is like, God, go get something to eat. I'm having this conversation. Why? Because Jesus is occupied with people. He's occupied with people. And part of how we move in that is we got to go to school. We got to learn. And that's part of what I've been doing is just say, okay, look, what's my part of taking something beautiful to the world? And so I want to share with you for a few minutes part of a conversation that I was able to have with a guy named Julian Newman. And Julian's a friend of mine who happens to also be a pastor at a church called Tribe Church, which is in the same network of churches that we're a part of. Julian's an African-American guy. I've been around Julian multiple times in multiple environments, and some of them just in conversations like this. And I'm just going to school. I'm just trying to learn. Say, Julie, man, help me see the world from the other side of the cup, from the side that you see the world on. Help me learn, Julian, because I want to be part of taking a beautiful thing to the world. So I want to let you in on a several-minute part of a conversation. We're going to attempt to make the longer conversation available to you in a different form, but just for a few minutes, just listen to this conversation and let Jesus just speak through Julian to us for the next few minutes. Take a look at this. I'd love it. Just if you could, maybe from your perspective, give us a little bit of maybe a working definition or a thought on what you would kind of say or describe that we're dealing with the issue of race in our culture right now. Like, where do things lie right now? What are we up against?
I think that I think we're lying. I think there's a lot of misinformation. I think there's a lot of emotion that's based on our perception of the facts that aren't really the facts. For example, when we think about racism is spiritual, it's structural, it's economic, it's social, it's how we deal with one another from a cultural standpoint. But racism is rooted in sin. It's old, So way back to Cain and Abel, all the way to here, we've had issues with people on the face of the earth, and so I think we have to understand that. And I think the second thing we have to understand is it's global. So though you and I are existing and living in the United States, there has been global issues when it comes to racism and how people are dealing with each other, whether we go to the 1940s and what happened in Germany, or the Hutu and the Tutsis, in terms of Rwanda, in that area affected by colonialism, or Australia or whatever. And so sometimes because we're so in this pressure cooker of 2018 tensions, we don't understand that this is a sin issue. This is a global problem. It has a very unique expression in the American story. And so when we understand that, and that you and I were born into that environment, you didn't create it, I didn't create it, we were born into this atmosphere because we live in a cursed world. But as the scriptures communicate to us, all creation groans for the revealing of the sons of God. And so as God's people begin to reveal themselves as bearers and carriers of light, as the image bearers of the Most High King, bringing beauty to the world, then I think that we can, I think it says, in Ezekiel it says, I looked for a man among them to stand in the gap, but there was none. And so we as believers have to be We have to be Ezekiel. We have to be restorers of the breach. We have to stand in the gap. And I think one of the reasons why we're not is because we're caught in the fray, in the flow of the craziness and the polarization and the partisanship and the politicizing in a way that I don't think honors Christ. And I don't think it ultimately serves the world or ourselves very well.
Yeah, that's so good. It's so good. It's so good to be reminded. It goes back to the beginning. Recently, in Journey, we've kind of engaged in a series just kind of surveying the whole story of God. And when we look at creation, one of the things God gave us was people to enjoy, but we messed that up. That there was sin. I mean, that sin broke that human relationship early, and now we are living in some of the consequences and tensions of that. It's a great reminder that you make to go back to the beginning and see it for what it really is.
Yeah.
When we think about kind of our part in it, I love the way you talk about just a few ways for us to view it. Things like we have more in common than we probably think. I mean, can you just talk about that a little bit? When I heard you share that the first time, I thought, whoa, that's helpful. That's really clarifying.
Yeah.
Walk that out with us.
So when we talk about racism, it's rooted in the thought process of races. So you and I use terminology like multiracial churches or a interracial relationship. And those are part of our common parlance as people that are existing in America on planet Earth. But the truth of the matter is, there's no such thing as races. There's only one race, the human race. And so you and I, from a dynamic standpoint of biology, we are 99.9% the same. And so, in fact, there have been studies done where a group of people from all over, looking different, black, white, brown, this part of the world, whatever, have taken DNA tests, and people that look as different than you and I do are more alike from a DNA standpoint than somebody that looks exactly like them. It's crazy. And so what that tells us is that this whole racial construct, though it is not biologically accurate, it's not based in any fact, it still has power. It's a social construct, but it's not biological in any way, but it doesn't mean it doesn't affect us. And so every day in the United States and all over the world, we are operating in this racial caste system that says these people have access, these other people don't have access. And so when we understand that we're more alike than we are different from a root standpoint, and we also have to understand that this whole uniqueness and mosaic that we see in the scriptures, where Jesus talks about my Father's house will be a house of prayer for all nations. Isaiah speaks about that. At the end of the Bible, it talks about how the kings of the earth will bring their glory into the heavenly city. Revelation chapter 7, verse 9, every tribe, tongue, people, and nation. And so one of the things that I think gets us stuck as believers is that when we go to this conversation about race or the concept of race or racism, whatever, we just focus on, man, it's heavy, man. It's a burden. It means we have to deal with ancient issues. We have to deal with slavery and, the Native American conquest and everything. The Trail of Tears, oh my goodness, is overwhelming. But if we get stuck there, if we just make about the pain and the burden and the bloodshed and whatever, I think we're missing the point. It's the beauty of God revealed before a watching world is what we're really talking about. And so what I believe that God wants for all of us is we need to contend to be a beautiful people.
If you get a chance to have a conversation with people and you look at a guy like me, and what can we do? As we talk about taking peace to the world and doing something beautiful in the world, how can we do something beautiful in the world, especially around this reality of race?
So like when we think about that, it's like, okay, if I'm not like Dr. King, okay, if I'm not, so there's this big whole thing, like, what am I going to do? This is so massive. This is so intense. I don't know if I'm going to march or I'm going to protest or whatever. But here's what I would say. Here's something beautiful that happened to me. About a year and a half or 2 years ago, I was meeting a friend and we were going to have lunch. And so he happens to be Caucasian. Not that that isn't super relevant to the story, but I got there early. And so there are times in different places in our community where because I am African American, there are people that are either not cool with that, through their body language, or there's a sense of fear that you can sense. And I think, for me, being a person that's been on the often the negative side of racism or prejudice, you develop a certain spider sense, with that. So I got there, and I was anticipating the hostess having that 0.5 second, there's a black guy, and then, doing her thing. I was bracing myself for that. I didn't even fully recognize that I was doing it. And she came up to me, and she treated me with so much kindness and so much warmth, and she didn't have that little hesitation. And so I was so moved by it, I actually went back to her and said, you know what? And I think her name was April. And I said, April, let me tell you something. And I explained to her my experience where some people have that sense of fear. And I said, you treated me so kindly that it really touched my heart today. And she started kind of getting a little choked up, and I'm starting to get choked up, and she's trying to do her job, and I'm whatever. But what I'm saying is, what she did is she saw me as a human. She saw me as just a person, not the scary black guy, not, what is this guy gonna do? What is he, why is he here? And there are times where I experienced that. So what I would say is, how do we do something beautiful? Is reach outside of the construct of your day-to-day comfort zone. Have lunch with somebody who's different than you. Go watch a movie, or watch a movie that's different than what you normally would do. And so in doing that, it blesses, I think, the people that see you. Like, as a Caucasian person, going to a movie like The Hate U Give, or a couple years ago, I went to Selma, which is an extraordinary story about Dr. King, and there was all these white people in there. And I shook almost all of their hands. And I did that because I was like, thank you for coming. Because in our society, we as black people or non-white people will go watch a movie with there's not one non-white person in there. I do it all the time. I went to see Churchill, or The Darkest Hour about Winston Churchill. I don't know if there was one non-white person in the whole movie, but I watched it, and it was an amazing film. But my white brothers and sisters won't always do that. And so to see that, it blessed my heart, because the American story, my history as a black American, the black history is American history. Native American history is an American history. Mexican American history is American history, et cetera, et cetera. And so what we have to understand is the church is an embassy from heaven that exists in this place called America. We are in the same family. That means my struggle is your struggle, and vice versa. And so this isn't my deal, and isn't just your deal. This is our deal, because Jesus has called us to family. And so that intentionality of, hey, I'm gonna dignify and I'm gonna honor somebody else's humanity. April did that for me, and I'm still talking about it 2 years later.
Julian is so cool. He might be Spider-Man. It's possible. Secondly, I think there's a lot of us in the room who our initial response is to internally say something like this: but I'm not racist. And I'm not even sure that's the issue. For right now, let's just give ourselves the benefit of the doubt there. The question is, would we take an intentional step to do something beautiful in the world by sitting down with somebody who doesn't look like us, by putting it like all those examples that Julian listed? Would we intentionally break the bubble we may not even know we've created and take peace to the world by doing something beautiful around an issue and a topic that's loaded with tension and lacks so much peace? And the way to go is to not go try and change the issue. The way to take peace to the issue is take peace to people who are sitting in the issue. And that's what Jesus would invite us into. And I want to say this very quickly. I know there's a few responses in the room. Some of you are like, finally, dear God, John finally found the light. Talk about something that matters. Okay, that's great. There's another group of you who honestly, there might be a couple of you in here thinking, that's it, I'm out, new church. And all I want to say to that is all I lovingly want to say to that is, okay, okay, we're going to continue to follow Jesus and what that looks like. Okay, there's another group that you kind of think, okay, like, yeah, maybe, but now is there an agenda? Nope, there's no agenda. It's just to follow Jesus and take peace into the world to people and places that need peace. And some of you might go so far as one day to say, man, you know what? As we talk about launching locations where we can be a life-giving presence, some of you one day may be so compelled by this singular thing that you're part of moving and launching a location in a community where not everybody looks like you. Who knows what Jesus would do in us and in you and in us collectively to just take his peace into the world. Now, again, let me just leave that right there. We're not going to solve the whole world in 10 minutes. But let me just put one more issue in front of you. Okay, just a completely change of direction. Let me put one more issue in front of you where we can just take peace to the world, where we can do a beautiful thing. It's, again, an issue that feels like a need, but if we can distill the issue, we can see people. And that's in this opportunity that, in the world in which we live, to be a part of fostering children or adopting children. Of looking at the world around us and saying, look, there are kids who don't have rooted homes. And this care of orphans and of widows, it's just part of what Jesus invited us into. He did it actually through his brother James towards the end of the New Testament of the Bible. This is what we find. If you ever want to just like clear shoot, just read James, okay? There's no fluff, okay? It's just straight, like it's very simple and clear. Religion, the spiritual life that God actually looks at and cheers and says, woo, that's me. It's to do things like this. Look after orphans and widows. Like that's, here, if you're following me, this is part of what you're going to do. And to care for widows and widowers is a completely different discussion that we'll have on a different day. But right today, just zero in on this orphan piece. So, look, part of what I want you to do is I want you to care for orphans because that's what I do. Like I care for you. You are spiritual orphans, and I came and I cared for you. I came and gave myself for you. So it's part of just who I am. It's giving myself away. So would you provide care for that? And here's kind of what's happening in the room right now. There might be one or two of you, probably is, who you've been wrestling with this for a while. Like for a while, you've been thinking, I need to, we got to adopt, don't we? Like you've been having this conversation at home, you're not really telling anybody, like, we got to do this, right? Or you've been thinking it, and it's just like, I got to adopt, but you've been wrestling, like, can I, what? I don't know. And so now I'm talking about it, and you and I have never had a conversation, so now you're sweating profusely. Like you're like, oh no, like, who turned up the heat, right? Because now you know, like, can't escape it, and you're wrestling with, can we and should we and are we capable? And I just want you to know that can you and should you? Yes. And are you capable? Absolutely not. And I'm here to encourage you. No, you cannot pull it off. You just can't. You just can't. You need help, and you need other people. You need a broader family. That's why Jesus allows his church to be his family and to be family together, because we need each other in it. But there's some of you today, and you're like, man, we gotta do it. No, wait, this is it, right? And you've already done all the research, and you know who to call, and like you're sitting on the edge. And I just want you to know you're not alone in that. I don't know always why God brings who God brings, but we've got boatloads of families who are walking and have walked this road and have provided foster care to children and have adopted children, have done both of those, right? So here's the thing. If you're wrestling with a little bit or you're going to make that move, here's all I want you to do today. I just want you to write anywhere on your connection card. Just take it right now, and anywhere on it, just write the word adoption. And maybe you're not even thinking adoption. Maybe you're thinking about just doing foster care, whatever. And in the next couple months, we're going to get you with a group of people who can sit and just know where you sit, who can sit and they can be with you in it because they understand, because they've lived this, and they would love to share from their experience and from their story. Can I be honest? That's how I'm learning. I'm just sitting with people like that, just learning, just like, what are we doing here? Now, not all of us have that unique calling to say, let me go engage in that way. But remember, we're all part of this thing. In James 1:27, we're all part of care for orphans and widows. So what does that mean? Well, what it means is because we're family, we rally around and we come around and we support these families who have that unique calling. And there are really tangible ways to do that. One of them is finances. In fact, next week, we're going to give away our entire offering at all of our Christmas services. So everything we take in next weekend as we celebrate Christmas, we're going to give it all back away to things in our community where people have need, and even a little bit globally, we think, just to where people have need, and orphans and widows globally. But some part of that, what we're going to do is we'll set it aside. And we'll just say, look, this is just kind of here for people who are engaged in foster care, and they get the middle of the night call about kids, and there was no way they could have been fully prepared because they didn't know what ages and everything else, and they just have instant need. Well, why can't we just be ready for that? Why can't we just be ready for that? And so part of what you give next week, it'll go to that. But here's the thing. That matters, and I want you to give liberally and generously every time you feel compelled to do it. But for some of us, that's too easy. For some of us, the giving is just easing the conscience a little bit. I did my part. Let me just give a check and walk away. Okay? Now, again, it matters. Please do it. But there's also ways we can just tangibly support, like be legitimate, real support. Sometimes it's as simple as coming along and saying, hey, look, can I just watch your kids for a while? Can we just watch your kids for a while? And it doesn't always work. Sometimes in the system and the way the system works, other people aren't allowed to watch those kids. But the offer is worth its weight in gold. And sometimes it's even more tangible than that. It's to say, look, you've invited kids into your home to help them be part of your family. You're caring for people coming out of unique scenarios. Can I just take all their laundry and I'll do it and I'll bring it back. I'll just bring it all back to you. Can I just get your meals for the next week, or can I just bring you a meal every Monday for the next 3 months? Can I just, right? It's just ways to say, hey, look, can I just do this? How can we just tangibly support to replace time so they have more time to invest? And then don't judge. We just culturally, we're really good at judging other parents, aren't we? Any parent. Come on, don't act all pious. We're just really, it's like a default mechanism. My kid would never do that until your kid does that, right? But you don't know anybody else's story. You don't know anybody else's story. And listen. Nobody, I hope I say this well. Nobody is an orphan by choice. Nobody's an orphan by choice. There's no way to fully understand the story that led to this place and this season. There's just no way. And so there's no way to understand the depth of care, the depth of investment. Right? There's just no way to comprehend all that. So instead of judging, let's cheer. Instead of having an opinion, let's engage. We can do that. And then last one, the most simple thing ever is to just be really prayerful. But can I push you beyond just praying for a general thing? It's when you bump into a family who's engaged in foster care or adoption or has adopted, just say, you know what? I'm adopting you. I'm praying for you. Everything you give me, I'm praying about that. And when I don't hear from you a week or a month or 2 months, you just know I'm praying for you anyway. I'm just covering you, and I'm just surrounding you in that. This tangible way to say, look. And do you understand? If we lean in on that, we could change trends. We could change generations. We could be part of redeeming directions. It could be a remarkably beautiful thing in the world. Peace is not yours, and it is not mine to hoard. It is ours to experience and to give. And when we've really experienced the peace and the person of Jesus, it will look for a way to be expressed out of us. See, you say it's just too big. It is too big. It's so big. The world is full of issues around race. The world is full of orphans who need a home and need a family, and right, it's huge. But don't worry about the whole world. Just think about what would I do? I wish I could bring to the whole world. And how could I do that for the people in my world? What do I wish I could take to the whole world? And what would Jesus ask me to bring to my part of the world? You see, because Jesus sees the whole world, and yet Jesus is occupied with the one. Jesus wanted to adopt the whole world, still does. That's what God's attempting to do, adopt the whole world. Every single human. And a lot of people say no. But he's trying to adopt the whole world. Can I just tell you what he's trying to do in the middle of adopting the whole world? He's trying to adopt you. You, personally, you. You as an individual human being. I mean, when you feel overlooked because the world feels big, when you feel overlooked because you've gotten rejected and left behind, and when you feel overlooked because you can't find your place, God's in the middle of that saying, I know, man, I know you feel cast off. I know you feel pushed aside. I know, but this is my heart. I want to adopt. That's why I value physical, natural adoption on the earth so much, because I want to adopt you. In fact, there's a letter called Ephesians written by a guy named Paul, and this is how Paul described it in chapter 1 of Ephesians. I love this. He said, long before God laid the earth's foundations, he had us. He's occupied with your life. He had us in mind. It's settled on us. It's the focus of his love. Do you understand the number of things God could have chosen to love most in the world and on the earth? And he picked you. I mean, now come on, somebody. Out of all the things God could have chosen to love most, he picked you. I mean, that's got to do something to rivet your soul a little bit, right? He chose you. He chose you. And I know it feels like there's not a lot of other people in the world who might even love you fully. Some of us sit in our own families and wonder, is my own family? The whole world, God chose to love you. The focus of his love, to be made whole. There's that peace thing, to be set at peace. And to be made holy and complete by his love. It says, long, long ago, he decided to what? What's the next word? Long, long ago, he decided to what? He decided, I want to make them part of my family. I want to bring them in. I want to be their dad. I want Jesus to be their sibling. Man, come on, I want to adopt him. I want to bring him in. And so I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to do it through Jesus. I'm going to give my first son, Jesus. I'm going to let him die in their place. I'm going to pay all the prices. I'm going to get all the legal paperwork taken care of. So the only thing they've got to do is just yield themselves to me. I've done everything else, man. It's ready. It's signed. It's done. All they got to do is say, here, Jesus, here I am. I just want to be at home in you. That's it. And it says this, what pleasure he took in planning and pulling this off. God took great pleasure in making it possible for you and I to be adopted. God is thrilled to do it. See, here's the thing. We look at the world and we look, what do we want to bring to the world? And how do we do it for just one? What do I want to bring to the world? And how do I just do it for my part of the world? God says, here's what I want to do for the whole world. And oh, by the way, I want to do it for just you too. Just you. Just you. I love you so much. I've got so much pleasure in you. That since before you were born, I've been thinking about how I can convince you I want to adopt you. Since long before generations of your family were even on the earth, I've been thinking about, man, how I'm going to convince him. I'm going to convince her. That's a treasure to me. I want to adopt that person. I want them to be part of my family. I want to be their dad. I want that for the whole world. I want it for you. And maybe today, your first move isn't to do a beautiful thing in the issue of race, and somebody who doesn't look the same as you. Maybe your first move isn't even to engage in foster care or adoption. Maybe your first move is to let God adopt you, like to receive his adoption of you. That's where the beautiful thing actually begins, right? And maybe today, yours is just to be compelled by the fact that a lot of life causes you to feel cast off and thrown onto the pile at the dump, left aside, looked over. God would say, man, never by me, never. So I did everything possible. I did everything that was required so I could be family with you. And it's literally as simple as saying, okay, then yes, Jesus. Then here, if you're going to die in my place, then yep, take all the sin, take all the ways I lived independently, take all of that, and just let me be yours. Maybe today that's where you would start. In fact, would you just bow your heads and close your eyes? And I just want to invite us to pray around this just for a minute. I'm going to lead us in a prayer. And here's what I would love to have happen today. I would love every single one of us to just repeat this prayer after me out loud. And for some, it may literally be, this is the moment you're going to pray that for the first time. You find yourself captured out of the whole world. God would love you, want to adopt you, take great pleasure in adopting you, making you his child. And can I just tell you, that heaven's just waiting to burst into celebration at that conversation. There's others of you, and you think a little bit in your heart, you think, man, I've been following Jesus a long time. Are you serious? I'm going to pray this out loud. And maybe part of what happens today is it's just a recalibration of grace. Maybe grace in your life has gotten a little cold, a little crusty. Maybe it's covered in dust and the appreciation runs a little low. And maybe just returning again to this, one of these first prayers with Jesus, it'll just, He would have us saying, hey, I'll take grace. I'll take grace. So just everybody, heads bowed, eyes closed, everybody just repeat this after me. Jesus, thank you for loving me. Thank you for taking great pleasure in making me your own. I accept your forgiveness, your grace, your kindness, and your love. And I give you my whole life. Thank you for being a Savior and a friend and my Lord. Jesus, I really do thank you that it's that simple. You've done the hardest things. Thank you that you hear our prayer. Thank you that for people, even in this moment, who for the first time just let that be the cry of their heart, and for the first time literally just are drinking deeply of the well of grace and your treasuring of them and your good pleasure in them. I thank you that for every single one of those persons, heaven's going nuts. Celebrating like it celebrates nothing else. And I simply pray that you'd confirm in the depth of their heart that you both hear that prayer and you respond. You literally do take up residence in their heart. You literally launch this new relationship with them. For others of us who just kind of didn't even know it when we came, but we just needed to absorb grace again. We just needed to be kind of overwhelmed by your kindness and how much pleasure you take in making us your own. Thanks for that. Thanks for gentle, loving, compassion-filled reminders that literally kind of just fill our souls again. We're grateful for it. And Jesus, as people who live with you and in your peace, wow, would you just give us some boldness as we try and do beautiful things in the world. Give us clarity to walk right into your step and to be shocked as we find ourselves in such holy and uniquely designed moments. Thanks for it. We love you, Jesus, and we trust you. And at the end of the day, we're reminded again that really what we're doing is just we're loving you back. We love you back in response to how you love us.